The Bliss Business Podcast, the show about empathy, connection, and consciousness in business. Today's episode is brought to you by Zero Company, your paid search, social media, and programmatic ad experts.
And welcome back to this special edition of the Bliss Business Podcast. We're talking about how to turn your marketing dollars into an investment. And we've had a discussion so far. I'm Tullio Siragusa with Josh Preiser, who's the VP of Digital Marketing at Zero Company. This is our fifth episode and our final episode. We've been talking about first in the episode one, we spoke about understanding the basics of marketing investment. We talked a great deal about the fundamentals of spending and versus introducing this concept of ROAS, a return on advertising spent. And then we talked about setting goals and having the right expectations and how to manage those expectations and top of the line, middle of the funnel, bottom of the funnel. We discussed all these various elements of marketing. And then we talked about in episode 3, the importance of measuring your success and understanding the numbers, really getting good at the metrics and understanding the various conversion ratios, just getting a handle on your business in general and how your investments in marketing translates into return on investment for your business. And then we talked on the last episode, the importance of having good analytics and optimizing your campaigns for peak performance. Today, we're going to talk about future-proofing your marketing investments beyond the horizon, how to keep up with everything that's happening in this space. I want to welcome back Josh. Josh, good to have you again.
Good to be here.
So let's go right into it. How can businesses stay ahead of the curve in marketing in terms of their investment strategies?
I would say it's important to periodically ask your agency, what else could we be doing? Certainly at Zero Company, we try to be proactive and bring new ideas to our clients. But it's very easy for an account executive to get caught up in just managing an account and improving what we're already doing. So don't be afraid to ask, hey, what other ideas do you have for expansion? What else could we be testing? And that should be an exciting question for a good account exec. A bad AE would think, that's more work. That's just more I have to add on to what I'm already doing. But a good AE should think, all right, this client wants to grow. Let me help them. And I would say for me, and I'd say for most AEs, I would say in this industry, growth is fun, right? It's where we get the joy from our work. And then a step beyond that, it's just human nature that if we have an account that's more fun to work on, we're probably going to end up spending more time on that account. So I would say, let your account exec know that you're willing to invest more and grow, and then you will.
It sounds like a pivotal and important strategy for future-proofing your marketing returns is investing in the relationship. Get to know your agency, build a relationship with them, and look for an agency that wants to do the same. That's what I'm hearing. Okay, so let's go into what emerging trends could impact the future of marketing ROI and ROAS? I mean, we've seen, for example, Google has evolved over the years with their algorithm. That has had tremendous impact on SEO, for example. I remember you could have a 3-month return on SEO efforts. Now it's a long tail effort, right? Oh, yeah. I think the first update that changed all that was the Panda update, if I recall correctly.
Yeah. That was
so
a big
how can emerging trends have an impact on both ROAS and ultimately ROI for the business?
Well, they will have an impact. I mean, the market's constantly changing, and when I think of change for the immediate future, the big one that pops in my head is the cookieless future, right? That certainly remains to be seen how that's all going to play out as of the time we're shooting this. Google is testing it with 1% of the market. 1% of people are not seeing having cookies used anymore. They haven't told us which 1%, but they're testing it out and seeing if it's scalable. And they have third parties testing that out too. But And honestly, I have a lot of thoughts on the cookieless future. That topic alone is probably bigger than we have time for here. But I think all marketers view change with a bit of trepidation, right? Is this going to be good for my clients? Is this going to be bad for my clients? But the bottom line is that change is always an opportunity, right? It's an opportunity to get ahead of your competition and making that adjustment when, not if, when the landscape changes. So I would say be open to change and look for an agency that is excited about the opportunities afforded by change.
So there are things you can control and there are things outside of your control. And those things can either be things that are moving you forward, or they could be things that are holding you back. You know, in the concept of force field analysis, as you know, I love doing those things. You can identify the key things that you should be amplifying that are working in your advantage. And then you look at all the hindering forces that hold you back from moving forward. And one by one, you try to eliminate those hindering forces. But in some cases, there are things outside of your control. There are circumstances you don't control. So what role or how important is, for example, innovation in your marketing investment? Making sure you're being innovative. How important is that in gaining control of those things that you don't necessarily control?
Yeah, I think for me, when I think of innovation, I think of testing, and in that respect, innovation is crucial. You never want to stop split testing what you're doing. And certainly how much you split test is going to depend on your budget. If your budget is $1,000 a month, you can't test as much as someone with a budget of $100,000 a month. So you don't want to spread yourself too thin, but you also never stop testing. You test creative, images, words. You test landing pages. I can think of an example just recently, really within the last couple months. We had a client where we had a mandated landing page change for one of our campaigns due to SEC compliance issues. The compliance officer got involved, said, whoa, you can't send that campaign to that page, even though we've been doing it for a long time. No, you got to send it to this other landing page instead. I wasn't happy about the change. The client wasn't happy about the change. We both thought the new landing page was not nearly as relevant to our message. Hey, guess what? Time on site for that campaign increased from around 1 minute to closer to 9 minutes. I mean, it was crazy results, all because we were forced to make a change we didn't want to. So, and I'm a huge proponent of split testing. I'm always split testing everything. That was something I hadn't thought of, that particular landing page. So the lesson there, I think, is split test things even if you think they won't work. Never stop split testing. Many times you're surprised by the results.
You hit on something really interesting just about the user experience or the customer experience in general, which ties into empathetic marketing, how powerful empathetic marketing is in reaching the hearts of the buyers, not just their need for a transaction. So can you discuss a little bit the role of customer experience and engagement in future-proofing your marketing investment? You touched on it a little bit, but how can someone do this effectively on an ongoing basis?
Certainly digital marketing is getting more and more targeted, right? As technology continues to improve, we're getting better at identifying people and making sure that the message we're presenting to them is relevant to them. Now, it's certainly possible that when cookies go away for good, that we see a step backwards with less targeted advertising for a short time. But I would anticipate that whatever ends up replacing cookies, and something will. There's a couple options out there right now that the industry really hasn't decided on a one-step solution yet. But we're going to continue to see better and better targeting. And better targeting equals more of a connection, right? And as it becomes more and more possible to make that connection with your customer through marketing, you better be prepared as a company to display that empathy once you do connect with them. So, I guess what I'm saying is like when a potential customer sees a really well-targeted advertising campaign, and again, that targeting is going to get better and better. That customer thinks, oh, they get me. They get me. So you better make sure that once that customer gets past the marketing into, let's say, the sales department, for example, that you do get them. Don't allow that customer to lose that connection. Make it a goal for that empathetic atmosphere, not just to permeate your marketing campaign, but to permeate the whole company.
Okay, so let's talk a little bit about maybe, for example, we live in the AI era now. What role is that going to play in helping to do more of this testing and perhaps experimentation? And if businesses aren't taking advantage of that, why should they? What do you think?
Yeah, no, something that I always have to remind myself too, sometimes you see these AI demonstrations, and sometimes they're amazing, and sometimes you go, oh, that's not great. But whatever we're seeing now in relation to AI, it is right now the worst it's going to be, right? It's going to get better and better and better and better. So you want to make sure that you're taking advantage of those tools, because those tools really do help you iterate. Those tools really do, there's more and more opportunities to use that AI to give you ideas of things to test. And what I really see it doing, we talked about wanting to be proactive with looking for ideas and looking for things to improve on. I think the more as account executives, the more account executives are using AI to inform decisions in their campaign, the more it's going to open them up to be able to do more of those proactive things and looking for more ideas, because their time isn't going to be spent as much on managing the nuts and bolts of the campaigns.
I mean, one thing I think that's come out clear from these series is your return on investment is tied to how effective you are triangulating a few things: understanding your buyer, understanding the market, having the right creative, the right ad copy, infusing empathy into your messaging. That's a big component. Experimenting, being willing to experiment, being patient, being able to willingly wait for the results and then continue to reiterate. And the one thing that's clear is how much faster you can do that with AI today. I think the other option is this idea that you could have access to the very best strategists, the very best planners, the very best creative minds, because all those data sets have been loaded over the years that you instantly level up your capabilities. So is there any particular tools out there that people ought to be looking at?
Yeah, I know for sure. Zero Company is again, as we're talking about this, they're launching aiCMO, and that's an amazing tool. I mean, I've been blown away every time I'm in there going, oh, I got to implement this. Oh, I've got to implement that. So, that's certainly one. I think right now, again, I think at this moment there's a waiting list for aiCMO. But, again, if you're watching this, in the future, it's possible that we're past that waiting list and it's opened up beyond just the beta testing. But that tool, I think, is really going to change things.
Thanks. So speaking of some final words of advice, final words of wisdom, we've taken the time to have this series. What advice would you give businesses looking to continuously improve their marketing ROI?
Yeah, I mean,
give us the gems, John.
Yeah, the goal is incremental improvements, right? We're not going to get there overnight. You touched on that, but you should be able to look back a year from now, 3 years, 5 years, and see how much progress you've made. And again, that goes back to developing that relationship with that agency. Find someone you're going to be comfortable working with for a long time. Again, that institutional knowledge is really valuable, right? That institutional memory. If you have an agency that you can be with for 3-5 years and longer, there's real value in that. I would say go back to our earlier episodes, start with the basics, determine your KPIs, your key performance indicators, figure out a target cost per conversion, work to hit that cost per conversion, and then once you've hit that target consistently, look to expand, add more budget, grow. First in that channel, and then in additional channels. You know, there's a natural progression to expansion in the digital marketing space. I love programmatic advertising. It's probably the area where I spend, you know, a majority of my time. But you probably wouldn't want to start your digital marketing journey with a programmatic advertising campaign. It's too upper funnel. You know, you're going to be driving traffic down to a lower part of the funnel that doesn't exist yet. So you start with this channel. Maybe it's Google Ads, pay-per-click. Then you move to another. You move to another channel. Maybe that's social media. You expand to another channel. Maybe that's programmatic advertising and connected TV, and so on. You know, too many companies, we find they find a channel that works and they never move past that. So be willing to expand it and text the next level. You know, have those conversations with your agency. What else can we be doing? And we tend to find that the companies we work with who want to have those conversations tend to see incredible growth over time.
The one thing that's come pretty clear to me from all this is you have to think the long tail, right? You're not just in business for this quarter. You're going to be in business next year, the year after that, and hopefully 10 years from now or even longer, you know, generationally. But you've got to make the sales happen, you know, because this quarter will lead to the next quarter and the next quarter. So you have to have a mixed strategy with bottom of the funnel campaigns that immediately have results. You've got to have a middle of the funnel campaign that don't have immediate results, but you're nurturing. And then you've got to have the top of the line funnel campaigns, which is all about awareness and ultimately driving those through the funnel. And most companies don't do this very effectively. So pick the right agency that understands these dynamics and will challenge you to see if you understand your business well enough to see how all these activities translate into dollars. And then all those dollars profitable. What's the return on these investments? And then once you've landed on a good formula, you can accelerate and you can continue to have success with it. But always keep in mind that you want to experiment and try because things change. The market changes, the industry changes, your clients' behaviors change. So new competitors come into the scene. So it's an ongoing dance. AI is going to facilitate dancing faster, more appropriately, more in alignment. But ultimately, it always comes down to nurturing relationship. Is that the thing I'm hearing the most? You know, if we wanted to give someone a key takeaway, what would that be?
Yeah, find someone you trust, right? Find someone you're happy working with, that you can have these frank, transparent, open conversations about, hey, what's going to work for my business? And again, it's building blocks, right? We want to pluck the lowest hanging fruit first, and then build on that, you know, and then you just slowly build over time, and again, eventually you should be able to look back and go, oh wow, this is really working, and that's the fun part. That growth is really the fun part for us.
Well, Josh, it's been a pleasure. I want to just leave the audience with one final thought. Empathy will always win. Always. If it comes down to choosing between 4 or 5 different products or companies that are basically kind of doing the same thing with various price points, the one most people are going to choose is the one that makes them feel better about themselves. The one that makes them feel like these guys get me. They understand me. They see why I want this. And if you can effectively accomplish that, then you win the hearts of people. You're creating community, not just customers. And AI is going to help you do that kind of thing. In fact, even a product like aiCMO is so critical because we've built in empathy into the product. So check it out at aiCMO.io. Thanks for joining us. Thanks for participating and for sharing your wisdom with us, Josh. And we'll see you on the other side.
Thanks.